This video, we're actually going to take a sort of step-by-step approach to what it means to be an ally to yourself. So the first thing you're going to need to do to be an ally to yourself is identify a problem in your life, the conflict, the war, the situation that you're trying to change. Um, we'll use a pretty classic example for people wanting to be effective allies is bravery. There's a lot of fear that comes into being an effective ally. And so learning how to metabolize fear in a structured way is something that everyone can use allyship on. And so here's how you can do this for yourself. So you identify the problem. I experience a lot of fear, anxiety. Maybe we'll throw in guilt and shame when it comes to thinking about being an effective ally. Great. So you found your problem. If you can, you want to chunk the problem down as possible, as specific as possible, so you know exactly what you're dealing with. But all you really have to do is identify just some problems so that you know what direction that you're heading. Next, you need to identify your superpower. Now, we can do a long, deep dive on superpower, so I'm just going to focus on myself, and you can kind of think about your own life. But in this particular case, my superpower is storytelling. And my superpower, thankfully, is perspective taking. Many people have multiple superpowers. You just have to choose one. If you don't have one, yay, you can read my book, you can reach out to me, we can talk about it, and I can help you find, I can do a superpower session for you where we find out what your allyship superpower is. But once you found your superpower, it's like, okay, cool. How can I use storytelling and perspective taking, which they're kind of similar, to overcome the problem of fear, of anxiety, about messing things up, about making a mistake. And sit with this, literally sit down. This is where people skip, take 30 minutes, an hour to really sit with this. Because what you'll find is that your brain's going to try and stop you from even engaging with this question itself. This is actually part of being an ally to yourself. Taking this and setting it aside for a little bit, how many people have gone to go help someone to find the people that you're trying to help are utterly resistant to your help? You know that if you gave them the things that you want to give them, that their life would change, but they're not ready to receive it. That is just such a classic human experience because you haven't earned the trust in yourself. If you try and solve this problem of fear using storytelling, if you haven't earned the self-trust to do that, your body is going to resist it. This is why you got to be an ally to yourself first, so you can see firsthand what that resistance feels like. It's not very fun to find that resistance in other people while you're on the battlefield, because if you've never experienced it, it's going to seem really crazy. But when you've experienced it in yourself, when you're consciously trying to be an ally to yourself, you'll have more compassion. So what would stop you from sitting down during that time? Usually there'll be some sort of belief, what have you. This is where a cleaning up practice comes from. In the Mastering the Game of Allyship system, we've got 4 stages of allyship. Waking up, cleaning up, growing up, and showing up. The cleaning up phase is where you spend time digging into the deep unconscious beliefs, digging into the shadow, digging into that part of you that doesn't want this problem to be solved. And honestly, that's really the part of you that you're being an ally to. Even though you've set a problem that's going to help your entire being, the part of you that's resistant to that is the one who you're going to try and help. Because once they're not resistant to it, the solution will appear on its own. So let's talk about myself for a second. What resistances come up when I think about sitting down and using storytelling to overcoming fear? Well, the biggest one is that, like, I would like to be a hero, but the experience of me having fear doesn't have me feeling heroic. Luckily, I've got perspective taking as a superpower. If you really jump into it, if you jump into the perspective of every single hero that you've seen in a movie, they didn't feel heroic while they're doing it. Most characters feel heroic after the movie's done. Maybe for the last shot of the movie where we can see them being in triumph is when they actually feel heroic. The rest of the time, they are feeling terrified, but they're driven, usually by circumstance or by an inner drive to push forward, usually a combination of both. So in being an ally to yourself, when it comes to fear, the best thing that you can do is come up with an driving goal, something that matters to you more than your fear. But a lot of people, helping people just isn't that my particular mission about learning in human consciousness, mixing it with role-playing games, creating a life of fun and ease and play for other people, that is very powerful for me. And I will encounter a lot of scary, weird situations towards that goal. And I have to keep reminding myself, otherwise the fear wins. So when I'm being an ally to myself, it's to constantly move back into that headspace of, this is research for my larger project of bringing gameful play into personal development. And fear is just a component of it. So I'm just going to have to get as many at-bats as possible. In doing this, suddenly I get to choose what fears feel useful. When I was an actor, I got stage fright every time I had to come on stage. I was not afraid. I never didn't go on stage, but I would feel the experience of fear in my body. When I'd play Ultimate Frisbee, I'd be on the line and we're about to go after the people. We do this several times a game, and every time I'd be on the line, I'd get a little bit of jitters. Those jitters became a totem, something that I knew that I could metabolize. I'd done it enough times. So anything that existed at that level of fear, asking women out on dates, asking for help at work, I started learning that there was a very specific type of fear that I knew I could handle. There's a type of fear that I couldn't. And me being an ally to myself was to constantly, systemically, step by step, only by degrees, increase the set of fear that I could deal with. When you find that fear, that's when you start being an effective ally. When I started encountering why didn't I want to deal with that fear, what ultimately I found was a part of me that wanted to feel good all the time. I hadn't found a way to have that fear feel good. Turns out excitement is the good version of that feeling of fear, that feeling of thrillingness, that lurch in your stomach that happens when you're on a roller coaster. In myself, my allyship practice towards myself was learning how to turn that fear and anxiety into the pleasurable version, even though the outcomes turned into making these videos and writing this book and having this practice in this business. The actual practice at its base level was, can I convert unpleasant fear into at least a metabolizable fear, if not a pleasant fear? And so this type of alchemy is what you're going to end up doing. The high level stuff might seem cool, but it's going to be the deep level self-allyship that you're going to do. And this applies to anything. This could be as simple as, oh my God, I got to clean my house. Well, why aren't you cleaning your house? You're not cleaning your house because some feeling's showing up. You got to spend the time to find out what that feeling is. Otherwise, that loop won't close. For many of you, your allyship practice is just going to be finding the time and the headspace to make sure that you can actually spend time to find out what it is that's actually causing this problem. Once you get that, again, things will fall into place, and then you get to start strategizing, creating little games, little opportunities for yourself to increase your skill. That's a growing up practice. And once your skill achieves a certain amount, then you have access to all these opportunities to be an effective ally to people. The real key is, can you learn? Can you take the learnings that you find from being an ally to yourself and start applying that to other people as soon as possible, so that you can shrink the time that you have to be training before you can start helping? Can you help while you're training? That's like a next level mode, and we'll probably talk about that later, but I just wanted to give you this little tangible piece of what it looks like to be an ally to yourself and how that then applies to other people. How does this apply to other people? Once you overcome fear in yourself, you'll be able to help other people overcome fear in themselves. What's important here, though, is that you can't go straight to situations where fear isn't present. You're not going to be a good ally there. You overcame fear, so you need to help other people overcome fear. The only allyship that you're going to be effective in is going to be overcoming fear, which means you're going to have to get really good at identifying in others, what does it look like when they're stuck inside of fear? It doesn't look like what it might seem like it looks like. You'll see it in yourself. So you've got to look and find people like yourself to help that out. So I'm going to leave it there, but you got to be an ally to yourself before you can be an ally to other people.